A senior manager at Amazon who is suing the e-commerce giant for racial discrimination is speaking exclusively to CBS this morning in her first television interview. Charlotte Newman filed a federal lawsuit against Amazon and two managers claiming she was underpaid, stereotyped, sexually harassed, and sexually assaulted. Newman alleges the discrimination began during her hiring process in 2017 when she says she was offered a job below the level and pay she had applied for. It's a practice known as down leveling. CBS This Morning Saturday co-host Michelle Miller sat down with the Amazon Web Services senior manager.
There's a problem with the culture and with practices.
Charlotte Newman says she's speaking out now because she thinks it's time for a change at Amazon.
It's time for Amazon to act with the same obsession internally, with the same rigor that we approach our businesses and our customers.
In the lawsuit, Newman, who's still employed by Amazon, alleges the company pays her less than people with similar experience. She says she's also been the victim of stereotypical racial tropes. In one instance, she says a coworker told her she looked like a gorilla, and she says a manager called her aggressive, too direct, and just scary.
I'm not here because it's just about me. You know, as the Vox reporting demonstrates, there's a pattern of systemic discrimination.
Newman's lawsuit came shortly after Vox's website, Recode, published an investigation into treatment of black employees at Amazon.
I think a lot of these issues have been festering at the company.
Senior Recode correspondent Jason Del Rey says he spoke to 10 black employees who told him they face both direct and insidious bias that harms their careers and personal lives.
There were some really awful experiences relayed to me. One comes to mind, about a black employee who had a manager from another team tell her just sort of unprompted that he's pretty sure his ancestors had slaves at some point, but he thinks they were treated well.
Recode also reported that internal Amazon data shows black corporate employees are promoted less frequently and rated more harshly by managers than non-black employees. In response, an Amazon spokesperson told us, "We work hard to make Amazon a company where our black employees and people of all backgrounds feel included, respected, and want to grow their careers. And they do not tolerate discrimination or harassment in any form."
Amazon needs to do more than just make statements about Black Lives Matter and make statements about what they're doing for black employees and other employees of color, and have that actually show up in how employees are being treated.
Newman says for her, it went beyond racial discrimination and unfair pay. In her lawsuit, she says management engaged in repeated sexual harassment, including incidents of inappropriate, unwelcome touching and sexual assault. She says she was groped by a manager at a work function.
He put his hand on my thigh and began to rub and kind of caress my thigh and move up my leg. And I froze and was just completely embarrassed and just stunned at such a brazen act. You know, all of the time spent ensuring that, I'm coming into work and being a professional, just to be sort of reduced to that was very difficult.
The alleged incident happened in 2018, but Newman says she did not report it until last year. She told us she confronted her manager.
I think he understood the gravity of what had happened in some ways, but I also think because he chose to put his hands on me again, clearly, to me, he demonstrated that he's a predator.
What happened the second time?
I was, again, at a work, with colleagues. This was at an offsite, and I was getting ready to leave, and he grabbed my braids, and he made an offhand comment about, you can leave these here.
Why did you decide to stay at Amazon?
Well, I think all too often, the brunt of sexual harassment and discrimination, it falls on the victim. And I felt, why should I be the one to leave one of the biggest, fastest growing companies in the world?
An Amazon spokesperson told CBS News, "We do not tolerate discrimination or harassment of any kind. We immediately investigated Ms. Newman's sexual harassment claim and fired her harasser." They added, "We also reviewed Ms. Newman's interview process, leveling, and onboarding, and determined that she was properly placed in her role at the company." Can things get better at Amazon for you?
I hope they get better for all employees. As I was coming here today, I was thinking about a quote by Coretta Scott King. It essentially says that struggle never ends. You constantly fight for freedom, and that every generation essentially has to do that.
That was our colleague Michelle Miller reporting. We do have a bit more from Amazon. A spokesperson tells CBS News the investigation into Newman's alleged sexual harassment resulted in additional training requirements for those in her reporting line. They are also investigating the new allegations in her lawsuit, they say, and they said they've set a number of targets company-wide, commitments to diversity, telling us they've doubled representation of black directors and vice presidents last year, and they've committed to do the same in 2021.
Well, let's hope they want to do the work. I say bravo to Ms. Newman, A, for raising the issues, and B, for staying. For staying, because that's how you're going to have change. You have to stay, you have to speak up, and people have to hear you.
Can't be easy to stay.
As she said, why should I be the one to leave?
Exactly right. It was very difficult, though, to hear somebody at the company say, you know, my family had slaves or whatever he said, but they were treated well. I lost a little bit of hearing after that. Such an oxymoron.